Well, Cage, you're going to speak to one of our favourites.
Oh, absolutely.
Almost came to the Crows.
Oh, mate, I was cock-a-hoop when I heard that. In fact, I thought he was over the line, and it's exactly the person we needed.
But mind you, Richmond have been a fairly good club too in recent times. Let's welcome him, Neil Balme. Balme, thanks for your time. How are you?
Oh, terrific, Dave. Thanks. Now, your listeners will think we're on black and white radio with old people like us. We've been around forever. Isn't that wonderful?
Well, I feel young tonight.
Well, Balme,
Yes,
I'm
you are.
83. I'll just keep pedaling, mate. I'll just keep pedaling.
I'm proud of you, mate. I think it's fantastic. But it's really good. I think people are still interested in what you think, which is a very important thing.
Yeah, certainly is. Richmond, tough year to say the least, but there's a lot of reasons, a lot of injuries. Things didn't start off that well. How you tracking at the moment? You actually recruited a few nice ones too, didn't you, this year?
Oh, look, you know, I'm ever the optimist. I think we're looking fantastic. We've trained really well, managed to put in a really solid pre-season, so our fitness is really up. We've got half a dozen, new players who are really quite exciting, but we've still got the challenge of another dozen or so who haven't really yet made it or not made it, on top of our, group of, 20-odd players who are very, very good mob. So I'm really positive that it'll be a very strong year. I mean, we had a bit of bad luck last year with injuries, which I know sometimes sounds like an excuse. But it did make it difficult for us, and it was a difficult year for everyone. But I'd be really surprised if we're not back to where we were this year.
Hey, the coach, Damien Hardwick, had a tough year himself, and he came out recently and admitted it. He said he wasn't perhaps at his best and as sharp as he could be. That's just another issue, obviously not the issue why you didn't make the 8. But you saw Damien at close hand you have for the last few years. Did you see much difference in the way he went about it?
Oh, I think he's been a bit hard on himself, but that's important that he is in a way, because nowadays the responsibility is all of ours. How did you play? How did you coach? We can never be as good as we want to be. And if he had said, "Oh no, he was terrific and everyone was no good," well, that's very old style. I think he's probably been a bit hard on himself. But we can always do better, and sometimes you don't react as well to bad circumstances as you should. But genuinely, I think we did run out of enough teams that were quite good enough to win often enough. That was our problem, rather than not being coached well enough. I wouldn't have thought.
Balme, what about missing the finals? Because you were the measuring stick. Having not made the finals, has that made everybody involved in the club hungrier for the coming year?
Oh, look, we're all desperate. We really are. We believe we're a damn good team, and over the last 5 years, we've won 3 flags and always been there close and been kind of the benchmark in a way. So we were really disappointed with what happened for our position last year. So, no, we're very committed to it. And as I said, our coaching has been terrific. Our blokes have responded well on the track. We played a intra-club amongst ourselves on Saturday, and I thought it went really well. They're working very hard on team structure and what you do when you should do it, as well as just driving yourself personally as a player. So I think we're covering all the marks. We play Geelong on the Saturday in a practice game, and then Hawthorn the week after, before the first game against Carlton. So I'd be surprised if we're not very, very competitive.
And Balme, talking about that game the other night, I believe that Dustin Martin and Tom Lynch both didn't play. Are they okay?
Yeah, no, they both trained, both ran. Tommy's had a bit of a hammy, so we wanted to take the pressure off him. He'll certainly play at least 2 quarters this week. Dusty either will or he won't. He's got a few little issues, a few things going on with him, but he's fine. So his kidney, for example, is 100%. He's really fit. He's been training really well. He's just got a couple of little things bugging him at the minute. So he may play at Geelong or he may not, but it won't have an impact on whether he plays round 1. He'll be ready to go from the start for sure.
Neil, watching from afar, I reckon the stand rule didn't suit Richmond. You had manic pressure all the time. You got back in the face, and when you're standing there, basically like netball, you can't do anything until they've got rid of the ball. Do you think you have to tinker with anything this year or change the game plan? Because I just felt it may have suited other clubs, but not so much Richmond.
Oh, well, you got to deal with what you got to deal with. I can't believe that some idiot came up with that idea in the first place.
It's ridiculous. It is.
Something on it. Oh, it's crazy. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's not go there. But
beautiful answer.
No, you're probably right, because we do. We like to cover space do all that sort of stuff. So it probably did challenge us a little bit, but you just got to deal with it. It means the other blokes behind the ball have got to work a bit harder to cover the spaces and the opportunities because the bloke on the mark has got to let the guy play on for some reason. I don't quite know why, but that's the way it is. But no, we'll cope with that pretty well.
Worst rule
I'm
I've
not quite
seen,
sure
I reckon.
what we've specifically done with it, but I think it's more about, we cover the player and the space depending on what's most dangerous at the time. So we would have done a fair bit of work on making sure we cover that.
You got a fair player, Dustin Martin, copped a really bad injury last year, and we all want him back and healthy. Lost a lot of weight, so he's put that weight back on, looking okay.
Yeah, most of it he's put back on, but he's running really well. But he's put a bit back on in terms of strength. So look, he's a star. There's nothing new you're learning from that. He is a genuine star, isn't he? I love watching him play.
You look, Balme, the fact that you're so good, you lose some really good kids too, don't you? Coleman Jones, Chol, two big guys have gone, left the club, and I suppose that's testament to how strong you've been. But you would have got probably draft picks for them, and it's sort of a bit of a rebuild, of getting a lot more kids into the team.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'm quite proud of with our club is that we're prepared to take the individual into account, whereas once you just sort of go to buggery, just do what you're told. But someone like Coleman Jones, we used to in the old days, didn't we? It was terrible. But now, Callum comes to us and wants to go. We want him to stay. We think it's important that he stays. But he says to us, look, I don't think I'm going to get an opportunity to play because Soldo's going to come back. Nank's your number one ruckman. You've got a couple of others. I don't think you're going to give me opportunities. I need a chance. And we at least took that into account and listened to him. So we decided that we'd let him go. Because, again, if it were just us, we would have made sure we kept him at least for another 12 months to see what happens. But I think that's one of the good things about footy nowadays, and our club particularly, is that we do try and take the individual into account rather than it just being for us. And then they know that when it's their turn to show us the way and sacrifice something for themselves. So, but yeah, and you're right. And Charles is very talented too, and we let him go. But when you look at the list, we got plenty of blokes to replace him, and we're not quite sure how we're going to do it anyway. So that's the challenge in front of us. It's only enough. Now you mentioned the challenge is we've got half a dozen new kids who look like they're going to be decent players. Now, we don't need to play that much, AFL footy in the first 12 months, although I think, the way Josh Gibcus has gone as a defender, I think he might get a game early. But we've also got another probably dozen kids who show a hell of a lot but haven't had quite enough opportunities to decide whether they're players yet or not. So that's part of our challenge as well, because the older blokes we got are not going to play forever, and when we replace them, we've got to replace them and still be a really a premiership challenging team. So we've got to make sure that whether they can or they can't, and that'll be part of Damien and the coach's job, is to give these kids the opportunity to show they can play. But people like even Rossi, who's played a bit but not enough, Riley Collier Dawkins, Dowie, etc. There's quite a few who we've just got to give the chances to play, and you have to make a conscious decision to do that. So, which is one of the great things about footy, is that they're the things you've got to solve, and hopefully you make the right decisions.
Neil Balme, I guess. The other one I thought really hurt you, Noah Bolter. I just love him as a big defender, can take on the big forwards. Is he tracking for round one?
Yes, he's playing well. We're actually he's been playing a little bit forward and ruck as well. So we know he can play as a defender, and we think the real strengths that he's got could be very, very hard to stop as a key forward. So we're really having a look to see whether we can build that into him and see how he goes and see whether he takes that opportunity. But they're the things that you've got to fit into your program somehow. But from my point of view, he's a very exciting player. There's no doubt about that.
And Balme, you've named co-captains, Nan Kermis and Dylan Grimes.
Yes, we went through a really long process of deciding, when Koch came to us and said, look, I've been captain forever. I'm happy to, step aside. I still want to play, but I'm happy to step aside from captaincy. So we went through the process of trying to figure out who was next. And it's not just the coach's decision. It's almost a club decision. So we went back to all the players and spoke to them and said, okay, what does the captain need to be? What kind of values does he need to have? How does he need to behave on and off the field? And we, really quite a strong process. And we were keen to just appoint a captain, but in the end, it came out that there were several people who could have done the job, and there were two in particular who were virtually almost, you couldn't separate them. So we sort of sat down and thought, well, what's captaincy anyway? And it's all leadership, and we need more than one captain in style anyway. So we decided in the end that it would be wrong to differentiate between the two of them. Let's make them co-captains, and they're both very keen on it, and I think it'll work really well. But both Nankervis and Grimes are outstanding young men, and they will show the way, I'm sure, and will help each other. We think it would have been unfair to each of them if we left one of them out.
Cool.
It may seem like a soft decision to go co-captain instead of making the decision, but we think we made the decision to appoint both of them, and I think it'll do us really well.
Must be pleased, Neil. Melbourne opening up again, crowds from round one. Hopefully big crowds coming back. Melbourne have been through so much with all the lockdowns. Have you noticed a real difference?
Oh, plenty of people around all of a sudden. I live just up in Fitzroy, and everyone's out all of a sudden. There's thousands of people around, so which is lovely. I mean, it's a bit more challenging, but it is lovely. I think we're going to get back to it. It'll be great to be able to go to the footy and have full crowds and all that sort of stuff. And it's been very challenging, but I think the AFL and the clubs and the players have done a wonderful job to hang in there, really, because I think if we hadn't have had footy, I think the community would have been far worse off. I think all sorts of horrible stuff would have happened, because at least it gives people that positive thing to look at and look forward to, etc. So, but if we can get back to normal and get big crowds in, I think the people will love it. No, so certainly the players will.
But, Balme, can I ask you this? How close, and I'm probably being cheeky, but how close did it come of the Crows getting Neil Balme? We heard about it in Adelaide. In fact, we were told by a couple of people that it was a done deal, over the line. Everybody was cock-a-hoop, but how close did it come?
Oh, look, I was very flattered by it, and I took it very seriously and genuinely was interested, genuinely. And unfortunately, in the end, I had a couple of crazy medical things happen to me, and my medical advice was not to take on something with too much anxiety, because they weren't quite sure. It was a head thing, which sounds like a cop-out, but I felt that whilst I was really interested, I couldn't take that risk, and that was the thing that made the decision in the end. I wasn't absolutely categorically coming, but I was certainly very serious about it, and I was really flattered by the interest in me, and was really interested in the job. But which doesn't mean I was keen to leave Richmond particularly, but I would have done so if we had thought it was the right thing to do. But it was just too big a risk medically, is what my medicos told me. So yes, that's unfortunately the way it was.
Well, you are the man with the Midas touch. Would have loved to have you.
Oh, what?
Yeah, Neil, thanks for that. Good to see you up and about, and Richmond are up and about, and bring on the footy season. I think we're all just hanging out for it.
Aren't we ever? It was great. I love you talking to David and KG. It's reminds me of the past. It's lovely.
Oh, well,
really
Balme,
nice
I was just about to say the same thing. Those days at Norwood were some of the best days I've ever had in my football life. They were fantastic, Balme.
Yeah, me too. I loved it as well. They're a great club, and I love the South Australian footy. But again, to be fair, I've loved everywhere I've been. I've been quite lucky. Footy's been wonderful to me. I've now been in footy for 50 bloody years. Can you believe that? Can you believe I could survive that long?
Great man. Thanks, Neil.
You're a legend, Balme. Absolute legend. Thank you, Balme.
Anytime, boys. Anytime.
Neil Balme there.
Well, I enjoyed that.
He's good value. Always speaks the truth too. Always.
But how good were those days, Will? You called footy with me at the Norwood Oval. How Balme running?
I was playing when he was coaching against Norwood. He's a terrific guy, but wasn't he tough as a player? But such a gentle giant away
the ground.
from it. Yeah.
On the ground, get out of his way.
Cage, what can you do with $5,000?
Oh, make something favourite.
Well, thanks to My Money House, you could win $5,000 cash. For details, your chance to win, visit iCanWin.com.au. My Money House, empowering people to live life on their terms.